Marriage is about love. Divorce is about money. Without the right guidance, critical mistakes can have lasting financial consequences. That is where I come in. My name is Gabriella Martinelli, founder at Ever After Wealth. As a certified divorce financial analyst, I provide my clients financial clarity, strategic divorce planning, and long-term stability. On this podcast, I am sharing what you need to know about getting through a divorce, protecting your legacy, growing your wealth and assets post-divorce, and figuring it out what you really want in this next stage of life. Let's get started. Welcome to the Divorce and Money Podcast. I am Gabriella Martinelli, founder at Ever After Wealth and a private divorce financial strategist. This is the first episode of a 3-part series about fear and financial clarity in divorce. Today, we're going to talk about something that is uncomfortable but important. What happens when fear keeps someone from protecting themselves financially, even when their future depends on it? There is a question that has shaped my entire career, and it is, when did trusting someone else to do right by you become more important than protecting yourself? And I'm not asking this to judge. I ask it because after more than 20 years working with business owners, physicians navigating high net worth divorce, I have seen what happens when fear becomes the one making the financial decisions. And the aftermath is heartbreaking. And I'm saying making the financial decisions and at some point is not making any financial decisions, because that's what fear does to individuals as well. I see this mostly in women, and we're talking about women that are smart, they are capable, they are educated, they are powerful in every other part of their lives. Yet, when it comes to the money in their marriage, they stay quiet. They lack awake, and they hope that things get better if there is any issues. And this is not because they don't know that something is wrong, but it's because they have been conditioned to believe that asking questions is dangerous. And this is really related to financial abuse. And I don't think enough people recognize what financial abuse is or how it looks like. Research indicates that financial abuse actually occurs in 99% of domestic violence cases. If there's some kind of domestic violence, more likely there's financial abuse. Sometimes it's just financial abuse. And it is, like I said, disguised. Unfortunately, almost 78% of Americans don't really recognize financial abuse as domestic violence. And this invisibility is almost intentional. Financial abuse doesn't always look like abuse at first, right? Sometimes it can look like love. Looks like caring or wanting to protect or being protected, right? Sometimes it sounds like, I'm just buried with money. Let me handle it. Do you think I ever gonna leave you with nothing? Don't get paranoid. You should trust me. If you push this, that will ruin us. Some tactics, for example, include forbidding the victim to work, or sabotaging an employment opportunity, controlling how the money is spent. Sometimes it's not even allowing access to bank accounts. And those consequences are devastating because surveys actually show that our concerns over the ability to provide financially for themselves. When someone is systematically abused financially, they start to believe that they can support themselves, their children. And that is actually one of the top reasons why survivors stay in or return to an abusive partner, right? So this is more about survival than it is about choice. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the paradox of why the survival instinct actually fails right here, which goes to my initial question, right? Trusting that someone else is going to do right by you overrides your instinct of self-preservation and protecting yourself. So, and what happens is that the abuse actually really hijacks your brain's survival mechanism, what is basic instinct to protect yourself. We're wired from birth, right, to turn to attachment figures. You caregivers, your parents. So when you feel threatened, a baby, a toddler is going to look for the adult that is a protection figure in their life, is a grandmother, a parent, a mother, a father, an older sibling. And when that bonding occurs, right, when it happens, the oxytocin, which by the way is called the love hormone, like is known as the love hormone sometimes, is released. So that gives the kid or the baby or the individual more comfort, and it attaches you more to that particular figure. So now what happens, happens in this case with abuse, is when that caregiver, that protection, that figure of protection is your abuser. Naturally, right, is usually your romantic partners. That's the person that is protecting you. If that person is the person that is providing safety financially for you, it provides a roof over your head, the clothes, the food, and everything. Well, that is literally the person that you go to for comfort, and is also the person that is literally abusing you. And that is what they call trauma bonding. I'm not an expert on that. I'm not a therapist, but it's just simply how the brain operates. It's not weakness, it's neurobiology. So the abuser is literally a threat to life, but he's also the one that is, or she is the one that is providing the security that we need, right? So in order to survive, the victim in their brain, the brain is denying the negative of the abuser, right? And they only think on the positive. So trauma bonding is a survival technique, basically. You are surrendering, so you win. So the trauma bonding is a survival technique, right? So you're surrendering, so you can win. So the victim aligns with the actual source of violence, in this case, financial abuse, right? And in doing so, they feel protected. So their perpetrator, rather than hostile with them, they feel that they're protecting them. So this is why when people ask, why didn't she leave? Her brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, protecting her, right? It's what evolution designed it to do, to attach to the caregiver for survival. The problem is that in this case, the caregiver is also a threat. So what happens in this situation is that the fear shuts down the financial decision making, specifically in this case, and when we're talking about in divorce. So ongoing financial threats combined with the fear and the trauma increases the belief of this person that is being abused that she doesn't have the capacity to change her situation, and is living there trapped and helpless and hopeless in this situation. So to be a little bit more technical, and I don't want to be really too technical, but fear activates the amygdala, shutting down the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for logic, long-term planning, and financial decision making. And the brain starts prioritizing what is going to keep me safe today. What is protecting me today is not thinking about what are the numbers saying, what is the data, what am I entitled to, and how I can make this work for me into the future. It's just fear shrinks the world into the one thought: do not make things worse. And financial abuse is not just something that we see during the divorce, and the consequences are long-term, not just for the divorce. However, because we're talking in the circumstances of a divorce, the problem we find here is that the financial abuse actually steals the capacity and the ability from this person to build a future, or even to conceive the idea of a future, right? It destroys the capacity to support yourself. Not because you don't have the capacity, not because this person doesn't have the capacity, it's because they believe they don't have the ability to support themselves, to support their children, to have a life that is comfortable after the threat and the caregiver. At the same time, they're gone. Studies actually found that there's significant associations between economic abuse and mental and physical health and financial impacts, right? Between the spouses or parent-child interactions, or even the quality of life, because you're really doubting yourself. You don't believe you're capable of not only having the ability to do something, but making the decision to do something. Because when someone controls your access to your money, they control the access to your independence. They control whether you can imagine a life beyond this marriage or this situation. They control whether you believe you have options at all. And at this point, financial abuse isn't just about limited money today. It is about making you believe that you would never be okay without them. So how does this this dynamic falls into divorce and a financial ambush? So when a woman is kept in the dark financially, she doesn't know really what they own. They don't know potentially the marital estate, the community estate. She doesn't know if something has disappeared, doesn't know if the money has been put somewhere else or the money was spent. They don't even know what money was there to begin with, right? They don't really probably have access to income. They do know they have a lifestyle, but they are really unaware what that lifestyle even is or what it means to them. So in return, she doesn't know what she's entitled to, and she doesn't have the capacity to even start thinking about what she's entitled to and how she wants to make that work for herself, right? In the meantime, what's happening is the person that has the financial control, they are already planning this, right? They're meeting with attorneys, they're moving assets, they're manipulating the perceptions, right? Maybe income is reduced, maybe we don't have that much money to spend anymore. They start creating leverage. They are preparing for a fight that the person that is this financial abusive situation doesn't see coming. In this case, one person has clarity, the other one has fear. Who do you think has the upper hand when you're going through a divorce? So I'm gonna share two stories, and I did talk a little bit in depth in this in my blog that talks about this topic, and I talk about two different situations, two different clients. Well, one was a client, one was a prospect, to illustrate a little bit of what is really happening when we have individuals in this situation. So these are two particular ones I'm going to talk about, but this is something that I have seen over and over the last 20 plus years I'm doing this. They are not in one specific geographic situation. They're everywhere. We see them every day. And it's important that we understand that even though they feel there's no options of resources, there are. So me bringing awareness about this is so we understand that the reactions and the feelings are normal. They are biology, but you could really potentially do something about them. So let's talk about woman number one. Met with this lady. She had been married for a significant period of time, had young kids. She is very scared. Now, this individual has a very high-end job. She makes really good money. She makes her own money. She just has no control over the money that she's making, right? So again, this is not just a person that is at home and has no contact with the outside world. This is a person that is very successful in her job. She is a very great mother. She just has no access to any of the money. And she's constantly being belittled because she is told that she cannot handle the money, because if she is the one that handles the money, they will not have anything. She cannot buy herself what she would like to buy whenever she wants to buy. She's almost asking for permission after she's the one earning the money. And this is a very extreme case. There's some that are not extreme. And this is the problem with financial abuse. You don't see it because you don't see someone trying to do the best for the family as abuse. And there's a very fine line in between the two, right? So this lady was very scared because she thought that they were going down that path. But even though divorce wasn't a conversation they were having, she knew that I have a program to prepare for a potential divorce. And if you don't go through divorce, you at least know where you stand financially. So she talked to me about that, and we talked. And actually, she met with an attorney. We have a plan to work in looking into the numbers first and then see where things will land, with the intention that she will not talk about divorce. It's just about her own knowledge and her own understanding of the financial situation. Well, interesting enough, after we talked, 2 days later, she gets home one night and there is the husband waiting for her with a separation agreement that had been drafted already for her, with a lot of threats as to, if you don't sign, I'm going to do X and Y and Z. Okay, realistically, the things that he tried to threaten her with were not real. They were not going to happen. He can threat, he could try. But I know in reality that was not going to happen. Okay. Now, she was terrified because she believed those threats. She believed that he was going to do something to ruin the situation or something with the kids. In that moment, she was so afraid and paralyzed that she called me and she said she decided with him to work on the marriage and forget about the numbers because she didn't want to deal with that. And she didn't want to say anything that he would be scared. And I did try to explain to her, and this is where there's a fine line, right? Like, I'm not trying to push you to become my client because I need a client. I'm trying to really help everyone understand that what I bring to you is clarity and information. So you need me. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that while you're working in your marriage, right? I understood that that's not what she wanted to do because she had faith and she believed in him. The interesting part is that when I wrote this blog, she was not working with me, right? And she was really hoping that love was going to fix whatever fear she had and whatever fear had already broken in her because she was very fearful. Again, a very successful, high-earning woman was terrified of this other individual, which I understand from my biological point of view. I understand. However, she chose to believe him. The interesting part, months after that, and after I wrote my blog, I learned that weeks after that happened, he presented her with another separation agreement, and she was so scared that she signed it. And I know, without knowing the details, that she signed something that probably was not beneficial to her. She probably left a lot of money on the table. And she's not better off because now she has her income, but because of the agreement, her financial situation is 10 times worse than it could have been potentially when if she could be aware of her rights and not feeling threatened and the fear of doing something because he promised to do some things that he didn't at the end of the day and she signed. In reality, he had all the advantage from the beginning. And this is something that she couldn't see that she had options. On the flip side, I have what I call woman number 2. And she was just as afraid. She was always hopeful that things were going to change. But after having a conversation with me, she realized something that I think was very important. And she did say that to me. She said, I can fight for my marriage and still protect myself, right? And that is exactly what I was intending for her and my other potential client to understand. Just because you're trying to find financial clarity doesn't mean you're going to go through a divorce. And you have a right to have financial clarity, divorce or not divorce, right? And I'm not saying go talk to the financial advisor that talks to your husband 10 times a year and 1 time a year to you. I'm talking about you understanding finances, you being involved and understanding what's there and what's not there. Well, this lady, the second one, she chose to seek information. She was terrified, but she took the information. She learned everything she had to learn about money. She understood her rights, and she built a plan. Eventually, months and months after that, the marriage could not be saved, and she walked away. But it was on her own terms, right? She had a plan. She had the information she needed. So, same fear, different ending. And the difference wasn't the lack of fear or the threats or having more or less information. This second lady actually did not have a job. So she was in a more precarious situation, if you will. But the difference was courage to seek clarity, even when the fear was screaming that she needed to stay silent just to keep the peace today. So the difference here is when women have financial understanding and knowledge, the fear decreases. When the fear decreases, the brain can go back to make decisions, right? And when the decision-making capacity returns, your survival instinct comes back online, and then you can protect yourself rather than depending on someone doing the right thing for you. Again, like I'm going to say it again, clarity, financial clarity doesn't ruin your marriage, but the lack of clarity could ruin your future. here is what I want you to take away from this episode. Financial fear works both ways in divorce, by the way. This episode, we focused on one of the most devastating patterns that I see and I have seen for 2 decades is when genuine abuse and trauma bonding make it nearly impossible for someone to protect themselves financially and even emotionally when they need to do it the most. But also there's another pattern that I'm going to be using that causes harm is when one spouse makes financial demands that aren't grounded in reality. Here we're seeing the pattern of the spouse that is so scared and fearful that doesn't want to ask for anything, not even when they're entitled or they have the right, or at least to understand what's out there, right? To start beginning to understand what you could potentially have a right to, right? But in this case, it's different because someone is so terrified that they are doing demands that paralyzes the system, paralyzes the process. Nobody's making decisions, and it becomes a different type or circle, right? So in both of these dynamics are coming out from fear. Their fear is just coming from different. Both keep you from making the best financial decisions. And both of them need someone that brings clarity to what actually is there from a financial point of view. So in the next episode, I will address the other side of this coin because understanding your financial reality matters regardless of which side of the coin you are on. So if any of this resonated with you, whether you are trying to save your marriage or you are preparing to leave your marriage, financial clarity can only help you. And there's a foundation for you to make decisions from a place of strength and understanding and not fear. So thank you for being here. Again, if you want to reach me, you can go to my website, everafterwealth.com. I'll be happy to have a conversation to see if I can help in any way and maybe share this episode with someone that may need it, because I'm going to say this again. Financial clarity does not destroy marriages, but it can destroy futures. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're going through a separation or divorce, please contact me through my website at everafterwealth.com. I would love to be a resource and partner as you navigate this season and prepare for your financial future. I'll see you in the next episode.